I really deep dove into training and horse keeping, horse care, how to do that properly for the species when I got my first horse, Tesoro. And when I deep dove into how I wanted to partner with this horse and grow with him, I actually found what's called R plus training or positive reinforcement training. And positive reinforcement training encompasses so much outside of just the physical of training. It also encompasses the mind and how we approach looking at our equine partners. So, going through that journey, one of the biggest topics that we discuss within training groups, R plus training groups, or with coaches is labels and how the horse world is very high in using labels. And majority of it is, I would say, is negative, but there's also positive labels as well. And it just sparked that interest to keep deep diving and how connecting that with new thought, faith, and how that really connects together. And when it was fascinating. So I felt like I had to do this mind dump after I kind of made that connection in my brain.
Well, welcome to another episode of Raising the Consciousness of Humanity. And today I actually have Kassie Coykendall, who is going to talk on a subject that she's passionate about, and it's called Hold Your Horses. Let's Talk Labels. Now, Kassie, I know when you shared this with me, it's not just a paper that you're writing, but it's actually going to be a speech that you're going to be delivering. And I think it's very insightful, especially coming from your mind, how you're looking at the world in general. And some of the things that you shared in this paper, it's it's more than just about labels, but I love the topic hold your horses because you relate it to your specialty, your passion, your background, which is actually raising horses. So yeah, tell me what inspired you to create this and create a not only a paper but something that you want to speak upon.
Yeah, well, it's been a pretty long journey since I was young. Um, very interested in horses, so I've always tried to incorporate horses in my life. I never owned horses when I was younger, so I really deep dove into training and horse keeping, horse care, how to do that properly for the species when I got my first horse, Tesoro. And when I deep dove into how I wanted to partner with this horse and grow with him, I actually found what's called R plus training or positive reinforcement training. And positive reinforcement training encompasses so much outside of just the physical of training. It also encompasses the mind and how we approach looking at our equine partners. So, going through that journey, one of the biggest topics that we discuss within training groups, R plus training groups, or with coaches is labels and how the horse world is very high in using labels. And majority of it is, I would say, is negative, but there's also positive labels as well. And it just sparked that interest to keep deep diving and how connecting that with new thought, faith, and how that really connects together. And when it was fascinating. So I felt like I had to do this mind dump after I kind of made that connection in my brain. So that's how I came up with what you read, just kind of this mind dump of information that's kind of unorganized right now, but I think it's going to come into a really nice fruition of a good topic to spread with the world for sure.
Well, yes, absolutely. And I think I'm curious to know like what are some labels, horse labels?
Mhm.
You said both positive and negative. If you can throw some of them out there. I I used to hear the label a nag. I don't know if that's a
Mhm.
horse label or not, but I know there's probably so like you said, there's ones that you hear all the time in the horse world,
Yes.
and share with those and actually share what they would mean to you so we understand.
Sure. One of them, very common, is called she's being marish. So that's for female horses, um, which that is associated with because she's a female. She has hormones that need balancing and things like that. So they'll say, oh, she's just being marish, um, which kind of puts off other underlying things. Um, a lot of people say he's just trying to take advantage of you, or
Mhm.
um, he's a gelding, he's going to act that way. He's naughty. Gosh, there's such a list. Other one that would consider positive is a horse, a husband horse,
Yeah.
um, or bomb proof, which is considered positive in the traditional horse world.
Bomb
Um,
proof. Wow.
bomb Yes. So bomb proof is probably in the traditional horse world is one of those horses that are ideally sought for. They don't spook, they don't react to any outside external pushes or triggers. They just are very, very coped to their environment. They were trained
Mhm.
that way. Um, and on our end, from the positive reinforcement world or the holistic approach, you would say that that's kind of more of a shutdown mechanism.
Sure.
So you're in the traditional horse world, they'll train pretty aggressively, depending on which trainer you're looking at, to make them bomb proof where they don't spook. So you actually kind of come to a shutdown horse, a horse that completely has learned not to speak his mind or her mind, not show any emotion, because they know if they do, there's going to come some sort of negative reinforcement for that. So that's a popular one, and a lot of people like that because they look for bomb-proof horses, bomb-proof for their children. Husband horse is the same one. I just want a horse that my husband can hop on and ride. He doesn't know how to ride, but I want a husband horse that they can just sit on and enjoy a trail ride or something.
Sure.
Um, yeah, naughty. A lot of British terms too that I'm not too familiar with that kind of are the same way, showing that they're trying to take an advantage of you, or don't let them get away with that. Yeah, there's a lot of different terms out there.
And do you see this? I guess what comes up for me, and it's probably why you wrote this paper and a topic you're speaking on, is because people, not horses, but people tend to behave in a way that we label them, or our beliefs reflect back to us the outside world, including the relationships with other people and how they behave towards us based on what we call them, our assumptions, our beliefs. And so this is probably true very much with horses too.
Yep. Yep. So the goal with
Mhm.
this communication or this speech um, is to train the mind just like we would do in our new faith at Center for Spiritual Living, or Unity, is change your thinking, change your life, right?
Yeah.
So we gradually change how we look at our horses, our dogs, our cats, our community, we're going to start to see more underlying things that require
Mhm.
attention. So for a horse, why is that horse acting naughty? Why are you giving that horse that naughty term? Why are you giving that horse that marish term? A majority of the time, if you take the time to breathe and look, you're going to find that either they're not being taken care of species appropriately, their diet may be wonky, not appropriate diet. They might not be getting enough time with other horses, which is definitely a big requirement. So you're training your brain to really see what the underlying behavior is. Why is that horse giving that behavior? And it's very important to bring that also to anybody we look at, whether it's an animal companion or a human. We tend to really write off other important aspects of that individual, just because of the momentary reaction that they're giving to their environment. Um,
So
and
essentially
that's
we can
interesting.
change the way we think about a person and make them bomb proof.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm throwing that out there because it's kind of like the same thing about if you're looking at for an ideal characteristic of a horse, in a way, we're caring for horses. So you shared some things in there, like maybe it's their diet, or maybe it's the way they're being treated, or maybe it's, but it all starts with our beliefs.
Mhm.
And I can see there was a study years ago, I believe it was by Dr. Rosenthal, and it was relative to a school system, I think in California, where they told the teachers based on an IQ test that there are certain students that were going to be like bloomers or something, that just expect great things from them. And the reality was they lied to the teachers.
Oh,
Yeah, the results, like it really wasn't the people that were the high IQ people, students or whatever, but yet somehow those students at the end of the year did excel. So later when they measured them, they did. So they lived up to the expectation of the teachers, because the teachers were told that these were your high IQ, these were your bloomers, these are the people that are going to do very, very well. And so I can see a parallel in this area of labeling horses and labeling people. It
mhm.
it
Yeah.
it goes along with how we perceive our world based on our own beliefs and our own labels that we're giving. So I like this topic.
Yeah, and to combat that, we do the same thing with horses too. Their breeding. So what type of breed they are, Arabian, quarter horse, they all mean different things. Um, and this horse was bred from this named racehorse from this lineage, and it can get kind of crazy. And people expect when they pay top dollar for a horse that has this very fancy lineage and breeding that they're going to perform this top level, whether it's in racing or dressage or jumping. And that's just another type of label. So it kind of goes back to that IQ example you gave. Humans have the same thing, right? You were born in this family, and this family went to school for this long, so you're going to go to school for this long, and there's these high expectations. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you have goals to reach with your child, your student, or even your horse or your dog, for that matter. Dogs have species too, or not species, breeds that
Yep.
have certain traits, and we do tend to forget the individual level and that individual brain, um,
Yeah.
and the emotions that come with that.
So going on with that, so you brought up the subject of dogs. I understand dogs better than I understand horses. I grew up working on my uncle's dairy farm, and I took care of my grandfather's horse, was a Morgan horse, beautiful, beautiful animal.
Nice.
But I don't have like the relative experiences I do with dogs. So the question I would have is certain breeds, let's say a lab is a good family dog. A lab also maybe tends to like water, where I've had other dogs that don't like water. Or we've had one dog that actually is a bird dog for some reason, instinctively within this breed. Now, maybe it's been bred into the breed. I don't know, but for some reason, this dog wants to hunt birds. And I didn't teach this dog that. So I guess, is there something that maybe relative that is been in a breed, whether it's horses, dogs, or I don't know. I'm just kind of asking that question.
um there is some relevancy to it. I haven't deep dove into the science of breeding. Um, there's just these stigmas, I guess you could say, that comes with the breed, and just like with anything, lineage and having instinct to jump or having instinct to run fast could be there. However, all the steps in that life of that individual is going to have influence on the behavior. So
Yeah.
that kind of goes into behavior science, I guess you could say, a little bit. So one thing, one label for racehorses in particular is that they love to run. I wouldn't say that, I guess that's more of a description.
Yeah.
But if you're asking someone who has a thoroughbred, they say, yeah, they love to run. However, if you're looking more at the species itself, the equine, so the equine includes horses plus donkeys and mules and
Mhm.
all that, even zebras, you naturally would see that they don't actually love to run. That's not part of their
Really?
instinct. It's just the breed that we created that can handle running around a track at a certain amount of time. But
So a horse's natural instinct is not to run, is
no,
it?
not in a sport way, I would
In
say.
a
So
sports way. Yeah. Okay.
right. Same with jumping. You won't find wild horses wanting to just go around a course and jump trees or limbs.
Yeah, they're probably
So
like, I don't know why this human being is making me do this.
right. And that actually brings into another total thing. That's another label, right? A jumper,
Yeah.
a racehorse, a rodeo horse, a barrel racer. These are all particular breeds of horses do those sports.
Yeah.
Pretty much any horse can do that if trained. Um, but at the end of the day, that also kind of brought into the question of, do these horses actually really enjoy that job?
Well, I could,
And
yeah. Or do humans enjoy utilizing a beautiful animal such as a horse to, and I look at racing, when you say racing, right? It becomes a human sport event or whatever you want to call it. Lots of money involved too.
yes,
But yeah, at the at the life of a horse, right? So yeah, I think that to me, I see that we've gone too far in some cases like that.
right, right. And this is not to say that these sports are wrong or bad anyway. There's definitely the pros and cons to each one. So again, where you're coming across, this happens many times in the traditional horse world. You're purchasing a horse that's a barrel racing horse, already trained, um, and then all of a sudden it's not performing. So the question is, why is this horse no longer performing? And that's when you come into this label of, oh, he's being ornery, oh, he's just buddy sour. That's another one where they
Mhm.
horses that actually like to be around other horses call them buddy sour, um, or they're pasture sensitive, where they might not want to go out because they're so used to being in. There's just some more labels, um, and so when I started deep diving into the concept of labels and why the traditional horse world uses them so much, it's again goes back kind of to that ego thing of, well, we bought this horse for a purpose. We have this horse for a purpose, and the purpose is to jump, race, dressage, trail ride, um, and whatnot. So it's bringing just a whole new different consciousness that is growing. It's growing a lot, which is so great, especially with new positive reinforcement horse trainers, and students coming on board. And they're starting to realize, well, I don't have to give up the sports that I love with this horse, but I do have to start putting more mindfulness into how I am having the relationship with that horse. So doing research into what species appropriate care is, doing research into the life they're currently living and how I can improve it so their mind improves. All of this takes into play, and humans are the same way, right? If we have a poor diet, it's going to come out in our behavior, um,
Sure.
which has been linked many times. In fact, I've read plenty of studies where changing the diet to a more holistic diet or ancestral diet changed autism, helped with autistic children or helped with other behavioral issues.
Wow.
And it's the same way with our animals. Oh yeah. Environment in the same way. I think we all kind of noticed that during COVID, right?
Hmm.
Being in close quarters and not able to go out get sunlight or interact with our fellow family and community, creates a lot of internal stress that can come out in behavior. And horses are herd animals. That is what their DNA tells them, is that they have to have other horses around to feel safe. So it just opened up a whole new world for me when I found positive reinforcement training. And the tip of that iceberg was the labels. How do we change going from labeling and doing that instant reaction of calling our horses or dogs or cats and even humans, even our community, that label, and completely Xing out looking deeper.
Well, I think the first step is awareness, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you're hitting on is if we don't talk about it, if we're not aware of it, then we really have no starting point. And I guess the question would be like, if you were to teach me or the audience or whatever, like, how could we, what would you do if you're finding out that there's that habitual pattern of using perhaps a negative label around a horse, around any animal, or even around ourselves? What would, how would we change that? Well, I mean, first thing is being aware that we're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Uh,
suggestions?
yeah. So with any, I would say with any animal, and you can try this with a human. I haven't tried it quite yet, but research the background. So when shopping for, I don't like to use the word shopping, I guess, looking for a horse or a dog or a cat, if you can strive to get the background of that animal to see what journey it went on. So for example, Liga, my most recent horse that passed, she was a fantastic, apparently championship rodeo horse. And she came with a lot of baggage
Hmm.
emotionally. And the only way to understand where that baggage is and why she's having certain behaviors, for example, she was very aggressive with food. Food time was a very high level, high energy thing. She was neighing and raising her head. She would get very separation anxiety from other horses. So I did my best to ask her previous owner, well, what does she do? What's kind of her life? So she moved around a lot. She actually moved from Michigan to Florida, which can be pretty hard on the body.
Hmm.
Um, she lost a whole herd, apparently um,
Hmm.
a lot of sales, or I think some passed away. So understanding that and having a foundation of why there's a certain reason to the behavior can then lead you into, okay, what can I now do to positively create new behaviors and also the feelings behind that. So changing how she feels around food. How can I positively train that she doesn't have to feel stress around food? How can I positively train when I take her away from her herd mates for a little bit? She's not going to have this anxiety
Hmm.
and this. And we can do that with anybody. Positive reinforcement training works on any species. They do it in zoos, they do it with dogs, cats, fish. It's across all species. So doing that even with people, well, okay, this person is having this reaction.
Hmm.
How can take a step back and ask, why are you feeling this way? Why do you have this reaction to this particular stimulus? Um, a lot of it comes to family relations, or
Hmm.
maybe they had some sort of trauma growing up. Taking that time to understand them is is so important if you want to have a relationship with that person. And even if you don't want to have a long-term relationship, having that conversation to not be so harsh or negative, asking those questions can kind of bring down the energy a little bit so you can have a meaningful, purposeful moment with them.
And I think one thing too that you hit on was so with animals in general, horses or all animals, there's more of a fundamental natural baseline of understanding with humans, we've gotten so carried away with technology, with jobs, with inundated with the everyday activity of life, having to go here, having to go there, having to get things done on time, tasks, schedules, keeping up with whatever the thing is we're keeping up with, that we become lost in our own habitual behaviors and triggers. And we very rarely ever have sit down and really have that deeper conversation about what is the reason behind that. You relate it to a horse that may have gone through some trauma, or anxiety around feeding, or being taken away from the herd. Um, we have those things going on, but it's almost at a subconscious level where we're not even aware of the way we're reacting or behaving to that. So I think what you hit on is really, really important because it's I think it's kind of like that personal self-discovery.
It is. It is. And um, being with horses and me changing my mindset with them changed my mindset with everything. It's brought awareness to my own diet. It's brought awareness to how I approach the world. Um, it's pretty amazing what they can teach you because they're so present. They are present in that moment, and just like us, where we're distracted with internet or um, modern times of our world, they are not. They live moment to moment and day to day, so it really grounds you. um, and even though they can carry things from their past and what I call baggage, we can help them unpack that baggage and
Yep.
come to a sense of um, being aware with themselves as well. Horses can do that greatly. And positive reinforcement training actually allows them to participate and say yes versus us saying no. And that allows them to unpack all those feelings that they may have from before, whether it was poor horse training, whether it was all the traveling they've done. Maybe they were on the road a lot for shows or something like that. If we give them that space to allow them to reflect in their horse species appropriate way, um, it's amazing what can come out. And then they can say, oh, well, this person's allowing me to speak my mind. This person's allowing me to say no. So now I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to trust this person that I can say yes more. So it comes to this beautiful relationship of maybe there was that tough, hardship of having them unpack and not really reaching my
Mhm.
goals that I wanted initially, but then it becomes so smooth and they're like, yes, I'll do that jump for you, or yes, I'll go around that barrel. Yeah, I'll follow you around. And it becomes such a beautiful conversation that you're having without actually speaking words. It's pretty neat. And with humans it's the same way.
Yeah.
If you're allowing them to have that unpacking moment, the next time they see you, they probably will be way more comfortable to have a conversation versus the first time. And you'll gradually get um, this new way of them opening up and maybe even saying yes to that conversation or to the relationship that
You're
wanted to be
building
built.
trust.
Yeah.
So, question would be, I know with yourself having worked with horses quite a bit, and how many horses? I mean, you've worked with quite a few, I know, over time, but
Um, I have owned four.
four. Wow. Okay.
All
So,
senior. Yeah.
yeah, so that's interesting. So, can you tell when a horse is sad,
Sad.
or something's going? Can you tell? Can you sense the horse's, like, if the horse is maybe off, having a bad day, or
Yes. Through this journey, I've also learned how what they call calming signals.
Mhm.
So, horses being flight animals, so they're always the prey. they have to actually instinctually not show a lot of stress, because if they show a lot of stress in the wild, they're going to be a easy meal for a predator, right?
Wow.
So in the human world, when we're controlling their environment, right? I mean, for most animals, they don't have a lot of autonomy. We control what they eat, we control what they live in. Um, they may not show this blatant image of being sad or stressed. So there are actually calming signals: how they hold their face, how they hold their ears, tension, things like that. And we humans do that too. Some of us will like clench our jaw, or some of us have like a nervous thing where we might itch our nose or scratch our ear if we're
Yep.
feeling uncomfortable. They do the same thing. And they have other areas that might kind of be mixed signals, like yawning or something like that. But if we're in tune with them, you can definitely point out if they're in a state of stress. Yeah.
I look at it like being a life coach or being a coach, right? Because you work with people so much, or even a person that is a Center for Spiritual Living practitioner, right? Because they're doing practitioner sessions. You have to be a deep listener. You have to be able to, you're there to help, you're there to connect, you're there to serve the individual. So you have to be at least acutely aware of some of those subtleties. And what you shared with me with horses is probably very much the same. You're like a horse life coach in a way.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting because and what you're learning directly applies in so many ways to us as a human species. Which leads me to my next question, which I told you I would bring this up somehow. You're a phenomenal singer. I've known you for a while, and I've seen you on the stage at the Center for Spiritual Living, not only Cape Coral, but you've done some with Bob Teasdale at the Center for Spiritual Living Sarasota, a lot of the
Yes.
virtual recordings. And I know you've been doing this for a while. So something about Kassie is Kassie knows music or can hear music or can read music or can feel music. You're aligned vocally, you can sing it. You're really good at that, right? So there's a desire and a talent. Do you see the same thing in horses? I mean, going back to a breed of horses, Morgan horses, Arabians, what do you see sometimes within the individual horse? They may be part of the breed, but maybe there's something unique about them that maybe they have this special talent or whatever, or different personality. Maybe it's coming through. Do you see that?
Yes. Usually after kind of that unpacking stage, you will notice that some horses have more compassion. They will welcome more other herd and horses into the group. They'll be kind of like a stress reliever for other horses. I've seen horses naturally who don't mind being ridden, and they cater to people riding them so easily and take care of their humans so nicely. Um, there's definitely individual talents. Some horses also will have a skill of scent work, which is being discovered, which is kind of neat. Using horses to track scents, just kind of like dogs do. And there's a whole plethora of things that can come out that they will individually show interest in. There's a lot of horses that love to jump too. After kind of that unpacking method, and we're not using force to go over the jumps, that they'll show, yeah, I actually really like it. And now that I'm getting rewarded for doing it, I definitely want to do that. So that, yeah, their talents will definitely come out, and their different individual personalities for sure.
Which parallels to the human race. Because the more, again, using that term that you just shared, the more that we unpack of of those situations that may be going on, the labels that we're self-imposing or we've taken on, or the beliefs that we have that aren't working for us, or the emotions that are behind certain beliefs, like we may have brought up from childhood. But the more that we clear that, the more that we can live true to our gifts, our talents, our purpose, our desires.
And that happened with me. Um, I I was through choir since grade school. I went in choir up until my second year in college. And I even tried vocal coaches, and I just never could find that fit.
Hmm.
Um, it was it was just never clicking with me. And for some reason, well, I guess I know the reason. Spirit knew, right? I started attending Center for Spiritual Living Cape Coral regularly. I met music director there and asked. I just asked, "Hey, do you do vocal lessons?" And she said yes. And just from opening up, even though I had such a hardship before of teachers telling me no, or um, having kind of this negative experience, that opened up to joining the band at the center. And the last cherry on top was finding my current coach, Colette. And the way she teaches is so mindful that I've just grown exponentially since then. So it was just that thing of I can't stop. I need to keep going. This is something I want to do. I need to find my place for it. And I finally did.
Nice. Wow. So yeah, we all have a stage that we can get on, but sometimes we need the help of that other individual that sees that within us. And obviously not, even though we may have some sort of negative belief, negative label, or whatever, there's another person there that's able to harness the greatness within us because we don't see it ourselves, and they can bring it out in us. And Colette is that type of person. I can see that.
She is.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, any last final words or thoughts that you'd like to share to the audience around this entire topic?
Yeah, I think the main thing I would like to express is don't ever stop being curious. We
Hmm.
actually had a whole theme of that at the center, which was fabulous, because that is what brought me on this journey. Was I did not just stick with the traditional horsemanship. I needed to find something that suited me. I'm not a dominant person. I'm not a person that likes to have a whip in my hand or spurs on my feet. I wanted to find something that resonated with my personality and my beliefs. And I just kept looking. I just kept
Yep.
looking. I kept looking. And that led me to this positive reinforcement journey with horses. So don't ever stop looking. If it's something that really resonates to you and you want to make a change and keep growing, just keep researching and doing that mindful work, and you will find it. Yeah.
Nice. And so for anybody who's out there that's listening, if they felt inspired by this message and they want to reach out to you, are you open to that? Do you have a whether contact information you'd like me to share?
I don't have quite a website or anything quite yet. It's a dream in the works, but I am on Facebook,
Okay.
and they can definitely reach out to me on there, and message me, and I can bring more information to them if they're looking for certain resources for sure.
And last question, which is more music related. What is your favorite song to sing?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Um, my favorite this week, I would say, due to the journey I just had in the last 24 hours, with my horse and coming here to Texas, I would say "Angels Don't Always Wear Wings." A great one because it just really suited, probably this message as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the title. Are you going to be singing at the Center for Spiritual Living anytime soon?
Um, that's not on the docket this month, but definitely in the
Or
next few months for sure.
have you sang it there before?
Yeah. Yes. Mhm.
Which do you remember which month?
I don't know.
I'm going to see if I can link this video to that. I'm going to see if I can find that when we publish this video. Maybe I can find that and just link it to that time when you sang.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Well, Cassie, I really appreciate this time together. I would say to anybody that's out there, please reach out to Cassie through Facebook or whatever way, or come to the Center for Spiritual Living in Cape Coral and meet her in person. She's on a stage there with the Big Love Band every single Sunday, and it'll be a delight to be able to not only be there for a positive, uplifting message, but positive, uplifting music as well. And yeah, thank you, Cassie, again. This is a great topic about positive reinforcement and how we can not only use that with our most precious animals in the world, horses and dogs and all animals, but how we can use that in ourselves in our own life as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ron.